Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. I am here to film another one of my favorite types of videos to film. It is an ink swatching video, and I have two people to thank for all of the inks that are going to be featured today. Thank you to Priscilla for sending these through, and thank you to Grace for sending these through. I met Grace in person at the Pacific Northwest Pen Show, and she is exactly like she is in her videos and just absolutely delightful. And I cannot wait for the day that I meet Priscilla in person. So I'm going to swatch both of these in my Galen leather A5 notebook with 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. I also painstakingly added 6 different papers in here, all in the tiny little squares. I don't know what I was thinking, but I know that it's going to look amazing at the end. But yeah, so it's a lot of work. And then off camera, I will also be swatching on Rhodia paper for my own references, as well as in my little rings binder here with all of the different color families. All right, let's get started. Grace was also kind enough to send along some stickers she made. So she's got certified penabler. Yep, I feel that, and my fountain pens go everywhere with me. She also had a lovely card, which I'm going to put on the back of this page here because I love being able to put cards and everything that I get in my ink swaps and just put them in here just like a big journal, just chunked up with all this stuff. So let's see, what do I want to start with? Let's first start with this one. This is Birmingham Pen Co Scuttlebutt. Oh yes, I remember. I chose this because one, I liked the name, and it's just funny. So I will be swatching with my Speedball B nib on my River City Pen Co nib holder, and I also have my Kakimori brass nib, which is on another River City Pen Co holder. So they're on the Rhodia paper, the Cosmo paper, the Endless Regalia paper. Let's get just a little bit more here. The onion skin, I love the onion skin bank, and the Yamamoto bank. The Yamamoto bank versus just the regular bank is definitely thicker. And then on the Tomoe River paper. This book is now getting quite thick to the point where it's going to be challenging writing on this side here. So this one is Birmingham Pen Co Scuttlebutt. I really like that blue, and I'm really trying hard to get into, well, I say trying hard to get into blues, but trying to introduce them more into my collection. How pretty is that? It looks pretty similar across all the different papers so far, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when that dries. So that is Birmingham Pen Co Scuttlebutt. The next one is is this Diamine? Hold on, Greed? No, hold on. This is the 7 Deadly Sins collection, and this one is Lust. And when Grace swatched these on her channel, she did such a good job of representing them, and I thought, you know what, I've got to try them. So a little bit on the Rhodia, Cosmo, Regalia, Onion, Bank, and the Yamamoto Bank. Now, in terms of my favorite out of these papers, I really like the way the onion skin feels, but also I really like the way the bank paper feels. And I want to try using them when it comes to letter writing. This one is a very dark, rich blue, and I think I can already see some of the sheen happening on the Rhodia and even on the Regalia paper. So this is Diamine, and this is the 7 Deadly Sins, and this one is Lust. That is a blue that kind of reminds me of, oh, what's the Pilot Iroshizuku ink that is like this? Konpeki, but I think Konpeki is a brighter blue, but you can see the sheen as it dries here. You can really see it on the Yamamoto bank paper and even on the Regalia. And even here, the sheen is only really around the edges where it is pooling, but it's so interesting, really, really interesting. So that's Diamine 7 Deadly Sins Lust. Next we have Troublemaker Copper Patina, and it's got a lovely shimmer in here. So I've already agitated the sample, and oh my gosh, it looks so pretty just even coming out of the sample ink vial. But wow, oh my goodness, I really like that. That's such a pretty green, and yes, I know it feels like it's pooling a lot on the Rhodia. Then on the Tomoe River paper, gosh, oh, that shimmer is going to be so pretty when it dries. Now with some of the Troublemaker inks that I've had in the past, they can be a little dry, so, and it feels like there's some trouble coming off the nib. And I wonder if that is the flow of the ink or if it's the shimmer. Not sure. But I am already liking how that looks. Oh my gosh. That is going to be fun to use. Oh wow, I really, and I mean, yes, most of the ink went on the Rhodia paper because that's the first one fresh out of the ink sample, but even the way that the shimmer looks on these, it's actually pretty, I say stable across all of the all the 6 different papers. I love that gold shimmer. It's a beautiful combination with that gold shimmer and that green. So that is Troublemaker Copper Patina. The next ink is another Diamine Cult Pens exclusive. It is the 7 Deadly Sins Greed, and this has like an orangey coppery shimmer at the bottom, which is going to be very interesting because just from the top of the vial, I can't tell what color that's going to be. Oh, it's going to be, oh, I hope it's, oh, you know what it reminds me of? It's like Inaho. I'm going to actually start from here. Yes, reminds me of Pilot Iroshizuku Inaho. Oh, okay, I do love seeing the inks on all these papers. And yes, it is very satisfying to see all the papers finished by the end, like once they have all the ink on them. But oh my gosh, the prep work to do a video like this took basically all night yesterday. So this is Diamine 7 Deadly Sins, and this is Greed. And let's do the broader swatch. I really like this one. Again, it reminds me a little bit of Pilot Iroshizuku with a bit of shimmer, or Ferris Wheel Press Queen and Castle. And if you are the type of person who wanted Ferris Wheel Press Queen and Castle and couldn't get it, I'll show you a quick comparison. So this is Ferris Wheel Press Queen and Castle. This looks like it's a little more, it's warmer. I'll show you when it's dry, but even compared to Inaho, they're very, very similar. I really like that. So if you are looking for Ferris Wheel Press Queen and Castle, that Diamine 7 Deadly Sins Greed can be a good, close substitute. All right, so Diamine 7 Deadly Sins in Greed. The next ink is Birmingham Pen Co Huckleberry, and this was another one from, oh, I was trying to be more open to, you know, blues or purples, and this one looks like it's going to be a really nice blurple. If you've never heard that term before, it's basically Is it blue? Is it purple? No, this one is purple. That's lovely. And it's going down pretty well on all of the papers. I love the speedball nib because there is so much ink in there. That's a lot of ink that just goes in just one dip into that speedball nib. But also even my Kakamori brass nib. I love this thing because of how much you can write with it. So Birmingham, and I'm just gonna write Pen Co. This is Huckleberry. And then do the line widths. I really like this purple, and I never thought I'd say that I liked purples, but I really like this one. And then can you see that on the bank paper there's some chromo shading happening here that I'm seeing on the bank paper, but not on the other papers, and it's a little bit of sheen as well around the corners here. Really interesting. So I'm very interested to see what these are gonna look like once they're dry. So that is Birmingham Pen Co Huckleberry. Next we have Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar, and it was supposed to come after Greed, but I accidentally missed it, so that is okay. I had a certain order that I wanted to do these in, and then I totally messed it up. Am I gonna rip everything up and start over? No, because just the amount of work to do, oh wow, just to do the amount of work for these little paper squares was a lot. That is a very pretty, like orangey honey yellow, but it's called Root Cellar. I don't know how to describe that color, but when I dip it, or when I dip that speedball bee nib into the water, a lot of green comes out. So there's probably a bit of green in this as well. Birmingham Pen Co and Root Cellar. I wonder if it's like in reference to maybe specific root vegetables, because I feel like it looks like a squash color or like a pumpkin-y color. Interesting. So that is Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar. Look at that. It looks more mustard on the onion and then like more orangey on the regalia. Really interesting. Next we have another Diamine Cult Pens exclusive. It's the 7 Deadly Sins Pride. And yes, it's a purple and there's shimmer, and I'm very excited about that. Diamine actually do their shimmer really, really well. And it reminds me of the purple in the Advent calendar, Diamine Tranquility. Like it reminds me of that base color, but the shimmer is not gold like it is in Tranquility. The shimmer is a little more subtle in this one, and I hope we'll see it more once it dries. But that is so pretty so far. And it looks like it's silver shimmer, or maybe like a mix of silver and purple shimmer. That's always interesting to me when there's two different types of shimmers. So Diamine 7 Deadly Sins. Which one did we say this was? Pride. Oh, look at that beautiful purple. Oops. Yeah, I get that. It's harder and harder to do these line swatches the thicker that book gets. Look at the way that that is drying. Yeah, so Diamine Tranquility has a gold shimmer. This one has a silver, and I think there's like little flecks of purple shimmer in there as well. That's really, really pretty. So that's Diamine Pride. The last one from Grace is Birmingham Pen Co Waterfront Dusk. Oh, and I'm already liking what it looks like on the sample ink vial. So I'm excited to see what this looks like on paper. So we'll first do the Tomoe River paper. Can't tell anything yet. it's like a burgundy brown. Ooh, ooh, that one's gonna take a while to dry. That is interesting because I can't tell what it is yet. So to me, so far, it's like a burgundy, brown, purple, kind of with like bits of, I say hints of gray. Very wet so far on that nib. So Birmingham, whoops. Come on. That's Pen Co Waterfront Dusk. It is definitely difficult writing oh my gosh, Waterfront Dusk. A bit more difficult writing smaller with this nib, but I do my best. There we go. I really like that. You can see the difference definitely in these versus that big swatch, which had a lot of ink in it. And I really like the way that it looks on these papers. That is really pretty. So it's like a dusty, dark, purple, brown. I really like that. So that is Birmingham Pen Co Waterfront Dusk. The next set of inks I have here are from Priscilla. Now I will only be swatching these first 6 because I already actually have this one. This is Birmingham Periwinkle, and I had swatched this with here. So let me just show it. So Birmingham Periwinkle is that color there. So I had already swatched it, and these were inks from Lisa, so now I have 2 of these, which is super fun. But also, now reminds me of that Magnolia Mirage as well. So really interesting how some of them can look so similar. This one is, I mean, the Periwinkle looks more purple, whereas the Mirage has more pink, but they look like they have pretty much like the same colors, just different saturation levels of each color. So I won't be swatching Birmingham Periwinkle, but I'm glad to have another sample of that. And we'll go ahead and start swatching the next one. The next one here is Birmingham Pen Co Eroded Bronze. And this one looks like it's a bluish gray, which, oops, I normally like. And if you're interested, this ink sample vial holder, as well as the one that I showed with the pen tray there, is from Fountain Pendulum. And I love all of her items. I think they're just beautiful. Ooh. I like this type of blue. It reminds me a little bit of like a more saturated or darker Storied Blue or Celadon Cat. I like that. Oh, I like that a lot. I like the grayish blues. I think they're more in line with what I like when it comes to blue inks. So this is Birmingham. It's so hard writing small with this. Birmingham Pen Co Eroded Bronze. Oh, and I can see as it's drying some of the chromo shading happening. There's hints of pink in there and a little bit of gray. Oh, I really, really like that one. Oh, can you see the way, like on the Yamamoto bank, you can really see the chromo shading happening, and on the bank paper too. Not so much on the Cosmo or the Regalia, but a little bit on the Rhodia, but definitely on the Tomoe River paper. Such an interesting ink. So that is Birmingham Pen Co Eroded Bronze. The next one is Diamine Assa Blue, which I think is going to be very similar to the 7 Deadly Sins. And I feel like this is the most blue ink that I have swatched in quite a while. And yeah, it looks like it's very similar to 7 Deadly Sins. That shade of blue. It's not something I normally go for, But this is like with any ink color. There are so many different shades, saturations, combinations of these inks that, you know, in every color, there's going to be something that appeals to you. And maybe it's not these blues that appeal to me, but blues like the Eroded Bronze or Cellar on Cat or Storied Blue, those really appeal to me. Ooh, that one doesn't have as much sheen as Seven Deadly Sins, but it does feel like it's around that same tone, same saturation of blue. I feel like that would be a good, I guess, everyday blue without, and I like it better without all of that sheen, whereas Seven Deadly Sins, that Lust really had a lot of sheen. So that's Diamine Assa Blue. Assa, not sure. Interesting, now that it's dried a little more, you can see a little bit of that sheen around the edges. So I don't know if it's actually that different from Seven Deadly Sins Lust. And I'm not sure, like with that sheen, I'm not sure if it's going to be an ink for me. The next one is Diamine and Cult Pen's OD Dil. And does this one have any shimmer? No, it's a standard ink. I always like to check just to make sure. I feel like this is a teal, but let's see. Ooh, yes, like a good teal. Oh, I like that one. That one is definitely going to be a fun one to write with. One of the reasons why I decided to start testing on other papers is because I know that I take an inspiration a little bit from Kristen of Life Inspires Design. I love when you see her do her currently inked on all the different papers, and it just looks so cool how some inks can look so different between all of those papers. Not that I'm going to necessarily be writing on each of those different papers, but it's just, for me, it's a little art project to be able to see all of these papers. And yes, it takes time to prepare, but once you see all of these inks on the page like this with all the different papers, that is, for me, art. I love being able to see all of that. So that is Diamine OD Dil. I really like that one. We'll see what it looks like when it dries a bit, but I think there might be just a tiny bit hint of sheen, and I think it'll shade really, really well. The next ink is Birmingham Pen Co Distressed Leather, and I am excited because I think this is brown. And let's see what this one looks like. Now, I'm trying not to load the nib with tons and tons of ink, or just at least wipe off as much as I can. Ooh, oh, I like that. I like the browns where they're a lighter brown, so that when you write with them, you can tell they're brown rather than they're so dark that you don't know whether they're brown or black. Oh, that's pretty. And look at how different it looks on all of those papers already. This is why I do the different papers. But even when, and you didn't see this because it's off camera, but even when I cleaned off that speedball nib, the color of the water changed to this really interesting green. So I don't know what Birmingham Pen Co do with their different ink mixes to add that like highlighter yellow green, but I really like this one. Distressed Leather. Gosh, that is pretty. And this is a brown that I think will look brown when you write with it, even with an extra fine nib. But look at how different it looks on the Regalia paper. It looks more like beige pink in that one, whereas this on the Onion Bank and the Yamamoto Bank, they look, you can see the yellows in there. And then with these three, they look more like beigey brown, not as much yellow, if that makes sense. So interesting. So that is Birmingham Pen Co Distressed Leather. The next ink is one that I wanted to try for a while. This is Taranishi Nostalgic Honey. Gosh, I'm like putting it up here. It's down here, Karina, is the camera. And oh, already I'm liking it. Let me just adjust the paper here. I already like the look of this. So let's put some on the Tomoe River paper first. Ooh. Interesting that I've put that right next to the Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar and how similar those two look. Ooh. You know, when I do these swatches, the paper that feels the most smooth to me is that Cosmo paper. Oh, interesting. It really does look like honey. And it's really lovely. So this is Taranishi and Nostalgic Honey. Oh gosh, I really like the tones of this. That it does look like honey, first of all, but also it's not too orange, not too brown. It's just right. And if I put this in the category of is it orange, is it brown, what would you say? I really like that. Now on the Regalia paper, it's interesting that it, you know, the base layer doesn't seem to stand out as much. There's a little bit of the shading happening here, but the shading is really prominent, I think, on the Yamamoto bank, and I'm waiting to see what happens when that dries on the Tomoe River paper. So that is Taranishi Nostalgic Honey. And last but not least, we have Pelican Brilliant Brown. And that is what it's looking like on the top of the sample ink file. I appreciate, and Grace and Priscilla both did this, that they put a sticker on the top of the sample ink vial so that I know basically what the color is. Ooh, this looks orange to me rather than brown, but we'll see what it dries like. That's really interesting how brown, according to some people or some brands, can look different. Wasn't there like an ink by KWZ, that brown pink, that looked nothing like brown, nothing like pink, it looked purple. So this one is Pelican or Pelican. See, my writing is blending together. Brilliant Brown. And let's see what it looks like in the, yeah, this looks orange to me. I would put this in the orange category. Still a very pretty color though. Probably not one that I may end up using, but it is it's pretty for what it is, but I don't think it's brown. What do you think? So there are now all of the inks that Grace and Priscilla sent me, and they are all pretty dry by now, but how fun do these pages look with all of the different papers? Yes, it was a lot of work, and I think next time if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do strips of paper rather than individual squares. Ugh. Anyway, yes, it was a lot of work, but I love the finished product. I love being able to compare, because some of these inks look so different on the different papers, like Birmingham Pen Co Eroded Bronze. The way that here the pooling around the shaded area is green, but you don't see that in the other papers, but you do get a lot of that chromo shading happening here. And then with the Birmingham Pen Co Waterfront Dusk, does that remind anyone of KWZ Brown Pink, where it's not brown, it's not pink, it's purple? But this one, I really like that. Then Diamine Cult Pens OD Dil. I really like this one. There's a tiny bit of sheen pooling around the corners, but it is so, so pretty. I know it's really small, so I'm going to bring this up here so you have, start on this side. You know, I love Birmingham Pen Co Scuttlebutt. I think that is a blue that I would actually use, whereas the Diamine 7 Deadly Sins Lust, I feel like even that is a lot of sheen for me. Even in the writing sample, where in the word Diamine, there's a lot of sheen. So that may not be an ink for me, but also that's probably not a blue I would reach for very often. And then Troublemaker Copper Patina. I love this green, and I really like the gold shimmer in it. I do want to try that in a pen. Then Diamine 7 Deadly Sins Greed reminds me of Ferris Wheel Press Queen and Castle, as well as Inaho. So, so pretty. And then Birmingham Pen Co Huckleberry, a really pretty purple, but I have to say, out of all the purples that I've tried, it's nothing that feels too different from what I currently have. Then we have Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar. I really like this mustardy type of yellow brown, and it's interesting to see it next to the Terranishi Nostalgic Honey. I thought they looked really similar when I first put that down, but this one is looking more brown orange and this one is looking more yellow brown. And then we have Diamine 7 Deadly Sins Pride. I really like that one. Then Waterfront Dusk. I really like this dusty purple, and I'm hoping that when I do put it into like an extra fine or a fine nib, it looks more like that. Then Eroded Bronze. Just look at how different it looks on those different papers, and that chromo shading just really stands out. And then Diamine Assa, Assa Blue with a little bit of that red sheen here. Again, a really nice blue, but probably not one that I would use on a day-to-day basis. Then we have Diamine Co Pens OD Dil. It's dried to more of like a teal or a turquoise color, and I especially like that one. And then Birmingham Pen Co Distressed Leather. I love this type of brown where you can tell it's a brown versus being too dark and mistaking it for black. And then Terranishi Nostalgic Honey. I really like this color too, leaning more towards the orange rather than the brown, but it's such a warm, comforting color. And then lastly, Pelican Brilliant Brown, which I don't think is brown, it's orange. So out of all of these, I think my favorites have to be probably that 7 Deadly Sins Greed. I do like Copper Patina. I do like 7 Deadly Sins Pride, Eroded Bronze, OD Dil, and these, I like a lot of them, but I think the ones that I probably won't end up keeping are Lust, Assa Blue, and possibly Brilliant Brown, because I feel like probably Ancient Copper. It looks very similar to that, but we'll see. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you again to Grace and to Priscilla for sending me all of these inks. They're just so fun to swatch. And this is the thing I love about the fountain pen community, is that we are happy to do these swaps and share these inks. And it just means that even when we buy a bottle, that doesn't mean we have to use the whole thing. We can share it with friends. All right, thank you again so much for watching, and have yourselves a great day.